Have this edited. Go ahead.
Anyway, my name is Jim Harvey. We're here from the Education and Healthcare Committee. I used to work at the University of Michigan and now work for my own company, JRH Engineering. Mike Anthony is also formerly at the University of Michigan and also now has his own company. And if we go around the room and introduce ourselves so everybody knows. Starting right here.
Neil Dowling, M Technology. Dan Neeson with Eaton Busman.
Daniel Sharif from myself.
Abdesh Khan, Robert Automation, William Multi Stripes.
Gary Fox with General Electric.
And our person on the web, you want to identify yourself, please?
Jim Murphy with the Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory.
Thank you all. I passed out.
Are you able to see and hear everything, Jim?
Yeah, I can see you perfectly.
Great. You may not understand me, but I'm glad you can see me. Thank you.
You're coming in clear.
You're a good man. This is the only session that actually reaches out to the rest of the world. You're actually in California, so I give you credit for being up early.
We're going to cover reaching out to see that Mike has organized 14 teleconferences since our last meeting on this. Anyway, some quick announcements. Some people have been asking about, is it possible to get PDH hours, professional development hours, for the time you spend here in paper presentations and such. This is at the registration desk. You can get these filled out. And I guess with that, we can get started on our agenda, Mike.
Sure. Right. One thing I should clarify is that both of us are consultants to the University of Michigan now.
Right.
Right. The story, it's an old story now. It's told by Fireside. He and I started in 82. I started in 82. You started in 84.
Yeah.
And we both, I was his boss for a while, and he was my boss for a while, so going back and forth. It's really a storied kind of career. Jim and I basically doubled the U of M power system from 40 to, actually more than that. We took from 40, about 60 connected megawatts to about 220 connected megawatts, at least in my 20-year career. Hi, Ken.
Hi.
Hey, we have somebody from California here.
Two people.
Two people. Gary. That's Eric.
I'm not from California.
You're not from California? Okay. All right. Jim, do you want to say a little something about what you do in out there at Lawrence Livermore, please, or Lawrence Berkeley?
I'm currently the electrical safety officer for the laboratory connected to the facility division, so I oversee the electrical safety and the startup of all of our new buildings here on the site. I worked with Gary recently on one that we had at our new computational research building that we used GE gear on that one with Rosendin Electric.
Okay, well, good. Gary's shaking his head. Great. Okay, so I guess I have an agenda here, but it's a draft agenda. I circulated a pre-draft agenda. Is there any additions or subtractions? I know there's a lot here. I sent it to most people, but not everyone. I talked to people in advance. If there's anything that you don't want to talk about, or if there's anything you want to add to this, I add places where we can stop and talk a bit. But I guess I'll say if there's any objections to what we'll be talking about for the next 15 minutes. If there isn't, then I'm just going to proceed.
Everybody that we have email addresses for should have received some pre-meeting information. There is a sign-up sheet going around. Please print name, company, and almost as important is your email address.
Oh, I didn't finish that. Yeah, so both I'm a consultant to the academic side. You're a consultant
to the hospital side.
To the hospital side. So I work in the College of Engineering and obviously the law school next, and the athletic department. So, but I did found an organization called StandardsMichigan.com, which was derived from the original 25-year-old University of Michigan enterprise to promote the user interest. The user interest is the weakest interest category in all standard suites in all nations. And so we try to keep ourselves pure as trying to represent the user, owner, final fiduciary. More on that on our website. StandardsMichigan.com tells the whole story. I won't go into it right here. Okay, so since the agenda's been approved, I want to make note of the fact that this is about I think this is the 4th meeting we've had since we sort of nominally launched. And we've accumulated ideas about how we want to form ourselves. We're very much in the same place where Giuseppe is and David Schiff are, to try to meet a need for what we see how the industry is evolving. So I think the genesis of the Education, Healthcare, Courts Committee and the Forensics Committee are all the same motivation, trying to meet the needs of the industry. Sometimes that is odds of meeting needs of IEEE, however. I know that. I do too. Okay, so what I wanted to do is to go over, it's been a rough year in many ways for us. Jim and I, as you probably know, organized last year's conference, so we know what Sergio is going through. You think that it's all over. You think it's all over at the end of the conference? Actually, there'll be 2 or 3 months where you'll be recovering from all the stuff that you didn't do while you're organizing it, so I think you misery for that. So we had 104. One of the reasons I don't want to belabor too much the agenda is because we're always talking. We're online 4 times a month. Typically, once every month, we'll usually get 1 or 2 people from Europe, from Poland, from Ireland, from Italy, Netherlands, and I guess we don't consider Canada a foreign country, although sometimes it is. We've actually called it from Cairo. I thought that was kind of cool. Almost all of them, or parts of them, are recorded and they're uploaded onto YouTube after we've had the permission, and we go through some IEEE approvals and such. Go ahead.
No, I don't go down
Oh.
the agenda.
Okay, sure.
Oh,
There you go.
that's too logical.
Yeah, I'm going to close.
Is there electrical
the
engineering
dashboard.
room?
Looks like we have a third person in here too. Okay. Let me close that so we can actually see it. Okay, if you want to noodle around with that.
All right.
All right. So we always have an ongoing discussion. My experience with the standards work is that you should never really forget where you're at. You should always work at least 500 RPM, even though you're nominally in high performance at 3600 RPM. You need to stay at about a 500 RPM at all times, otherwise you spend too much time restarting. Yes?
So it's my first time here, so I just want to know what's the focus of this subcommittee or video.
Right, we actually have a paper that's unpublished at this point. I can give this to you right here.
Maybe a brief.
Eventually we'll get that cleaned up and uploaded. But that's the focus of
Since
it.
the question was just asked, and just to repeat what our agenda is here, is we're the Industrial and Commercial Power Systems Department, and but the commercial side of that name has not been given the attention that the industrial side had. So the thought was open up the department more to the commercial side. That's why and since Mike works at the education, he was at the campus, university campus, I was at the hospital campus. It seemed to make perfect sense to be educational and healthcare, because for that reason and for the other significant reason, that it's a huge section of the market.
Yeah, the biggest and the baddest hospitals in the United States are the universities. And the education industry is the largest non-residential building construction market in the United States. That's 80 to 90 billion. That's about Microsoft's annual sales. So next time you're going to fly into an airport and you wash away all the commercial buildings and all the roads and all the other public infrastructure, after that, the education facilities, the schools, the hospitals, and the universities are doing the most renovation and building of any industry in the United States. It's incredible. I still don't believe it when I see it, but that's the numbers, and that's been pretty steady. So overall, the
for some
industry,
universities, this may be peanuts. We finished a $750 million hospital about 4 years ago, and now we're starting a major 16-story clinical inpatient facility and another off-site clinic area.
Mhm.
so I hope that gives you, frames some of it a little bit. trying to meet the needs of that market. Sergio?
I understand, that's what you do in your work, and that's what you do in your work, but what is this subcommittee for?
Well, I'm trying to answer his question.
I know.
Okay, so we're trying to describe the size of the market, and we're the largest probably of any other attendee here. General Electric, I don't know if you guys, we spend $300 million a year. We try to give some scale to that. That's a Fortune #3 company in the United States, so I'm just trying to tell you how large the market is.
To the point I think Sergio is going for, this committee is to represent the educational and healthcare community, which has not been represented very well at all. So we're trying to provide a venue for those people to either come to these meetings, and we're working on that. We haven't been terribly successful getting more attendees at the meeting, but we got a gentleman on the internet with us right now. Mike has 14, he's had 14 conferences in the last 6 months.
No, 104.
104, and also educational. I mean, we're giving papers here, but the folks that we're trying to represent can't get away to come to these conferences, so we have these, how many of those?
We have 6 of these, and Jim on the line did this one for us. There's others, but we want to give them a little more polish, but in general, what I try to make the point here is that even though we're not proving ourselves as a paper-ready crowd, if you're within an organization, just think about the customer. This is what happens when you think about the customer first. Okay? So maybe IEEE has a need for the intellectual property to sell. That's their money in. But the customer himself needs the standard of care set. He needs a venue for vetting the ideas and just sort of driving new ideas and meeting people like Gary and others around here. And Eaton also.
It's very clear there, but these 1, 2, 3, 5
Video conference.
video conferences.
Click it, you'll get right to the YouTube video. A couple hundred views, 150, 200 views.
They're funny,
We just uploaded this one. Lauren Clark. Lauren's probably still sleeping. So if you click it, you should click it. It'll get you right to it.
Right.
Well, how about let's do Jim's. Click right there. Click YouTube. Right there.
Okay.
Right there. It should take you there. Cold. Go back.
Anyway, if we get there or not, I mean, we're making these available to people through the web.
Okay, so this is Jim, and we just want to show you, you've got 5 views over the past few months. Where do we go in September? So in general, that's what these are for. This is the equivalent. This is what a facility guy relates to more rather than papers. Now I got to stop it. How do I stop it? There we go. There we go.
If I may
Okay.
interject,
Yeah, go ahead.
I commend what you're doing. However, the focus of this subcommittee is to generate papers for INCPS.
So I think we're going to have to look at other
Yeah, but then
arrangements.
you can, never mind.
Yeah, I
We'll
think
leave it go with
it's a
that.
fair point. If subcommittees are set up to generate papers for intellectual property by IEEE to sell, I get that. We do have one.
No, you're.
We will have another one.
You're
But
monetized.
Sergio, we always have this discussion, and it's that
All right,
maybe we're not
forget
perfectly
it,
placed.
forget it.
Well, if you do want to do what you want to do, then you need to open up a PAR under TPCC.
We have one. Well, we
No,
have a
no,
draft.
hold on, we got one later in the agenda where we're talking about a PAR.
That's where you can introduce a
Right.
lot of the stuff.
And for those who are not familiar with a PAR is a project authorization request so that the IEEE can bless an effort to write a standard on a given subject. And that's one of the agenda items today.
So what would be the topics of those papers from this subcommittee? What, do you have anything in mind?
Well, I guess one of the first cuts is, it's a good question because it leads into the issue that we don't want to step on the toes of the 3,000 series that are already happening right now. For example, Steve's not here, but I'm trying to get campus lighting systems. U of M has 10,000 lamps. After public utilities, universities have the largest site lighting systems in the United States. And there's no standard of care. Guess who owns that? The Illumination Engineering Society and ASHRAE own that. Why don't electrical engineers own lighting? It's because IEEE let other organizations have it. So we feel like we want to be able to bring some of those ideas into the suite that already
By
exists.
the way, 3001.9 is a joint standard
Yeah.
between IEEE and IES.
Yes.
Yeah, that's something.
Okay, all right, that's-
Is that relatively
Is that par
changing?
open? Gary, is that par open?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'm
So
contributing
you
to
can
that.
join that par and help
I'm in
out.
that one, and I've talked to Stephen about it, we've had some concepts, I just have to put it in, I guess we'll call legislative language, or we have to put in formal polished language in the standard, but there's a couple paragraphs specifically for the broad contours of the standard of care for large campus lighting systems.
Are you focused on both the industrial and commercial facilities or only the commercial facilities?
Well, I
Just
think
for commercial.
the genesis of this, I believe, this whole committee started 50 years ago, and it had a heavy industry focus.
Okay.
So you can imagine Michigan was a heavy industry focus. The economy might have changed since you know, obviously, over the past 50 years, and so that's why we're going commercial. Yeah.
Michael, do you have any plans to do anything of bringing the old white book into a more modern?
Great,
That's in my domain.
love it.
Is it?
Yeah.
What's that?
Okay.
But I don't want to step on
Sorry,
your toes.
Repeat what you just said.
That's part of my committee.
3001
Yeah.
is where?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm sorry, I did not know that.
So, and that bears some further discussion as far as whether you take the contents of the white book and it gets disseminated through what's out there now, or proposed now, or should we have a DOT standard just for healthcare by itself?
Okay.
There's one thing that's in the white book that I do not believe is in any DOT standards, it's renovation. Is that correct? Hospitals churn more space than probably any other type of facility. Churn meaning by redoing and redoing and redoing. And that is a whole different way. Doing a renovation in an active facility is a very specialized, different animal than what most people get exposed to.
I think the old standards gave about a paragraph to that previously.
To which did,
I think both the red and the gray book talked about that in the,
but not very much.
not very much, no.
And there's a whole chapter, there was a whole chapter in the white book on renovation. And anyway.
But in general, at least it's my intention, it doesn't happen to be the way it's going to be, but it's never to step on the toes or get into the scope of others. There's enough going on in campus systems without having to deal with some of the stuff. You guys should have the locus, the center of gravity of that body of knowledge.
Well, there's also a responsibility of any standard generating not to do that.
Right.
It's clearly part of the scope of what you do is don't overlap anyone else.
That's right, and we'll be meticulous about that.
So did we get off subject a little bit? I mean, writing a standard is one way of bringing better focus to our subcommittee. And that is a little bit lower in the agenda.
Sorry. The organization is set up so the subcommittee has absolutely zero input on the standards. The standards fall under TVCC. The subcommittee writes papers, period.
But who's going to propose it if we don't propose it? On this particular subject
Then you
that
have to-
deals
you
with
have to open
educational
up
and
a working
healthcare
group
facilities.
and submit a plan.
Right.
Then you change ownership, that working group changes ownership to the TVCC, it no longer belongs to the subcommittee.
But the audience that we were aiming for and having that would have a reason to become involved and come to our meetings or become involved with our standards writing because it's something that will deal directly with something of great interest to them.
Great, and if you get a par open under TVCC and you follow the
I'm doing a sound check. Your comments will be recorded here.
Right.
Sergio, this was part of one of the original discussions. We actually had a draft. We actually discussed it on several teleconferences. It's out there. We just have to recover it. A lot of the stuff is still from my University of Michigan file, which I still have access to. But we came out with a draft PAR. And I think there were a lot of administrative and procedurals and territorial issues we dealt with. So we backed off on it. And instead, we decided to organize the 2016 Detroit ICPNS conference. And that's where it left. It more or less stopped when Jim and I raised our hand and said, we'll organize the next conference.
Anyway, did we answer your question a little bit? Sorry, Jim.
It's
You
just
answered
time.
my
We
question.
can't.
I don't think you answered his question. What's
Did I answer
the
your
scope of
question?
this subcommittee?
What I tried to answer,
Well,
did I?
go to the abstract. See the abstract on that
Yeah,
paper?
it was clear because I was new in the meeting, so.
Okay. I think it becomes clear to people who call into our teleconferences, and I just try to mention that we usually will have 2 to 8 people, usually it's the same people. We have 10 new attendees, never heard of us before, but they're interested. I'm not sure if Jim, have you heard of us before, before Jerry did his presentation?
No, I had not.
So, there we go, got some awareness. We don't have paying customers yet, but something's happening.
Anyway.
Okay, can we move on to that one? Okay, so I've tried to get as much social media cranked up here for us. So we do have a Twitter site, and I'm very focused on what I actually tweet. I don't retweet political things. I try to keep it all technical. I started this one for ICP&S, again, trying to promote this conference and other conferences. I announced paper deadlines on here also, so just the administrative stuff. We also have the IEEE, we have a LinkedIn. This committee has a LinkedIn group. We have 6 members now. I've invited many others. So, and also I'm inviting people to help me with this. This is non-trivial amounts of work here. And then we also have one for LinkedIn just for ICP&S, and that one is here. We might have more here. So it's 12 members here. So again, this is like Neil's. I announced your, and I think this might have a hand in the fact you had 200 people calling in.
It did, thank you very much.
So you send it out there in the Twitter sphere, and all kinds of cats and dogs show up, but at least you have some.
They were well behaved.
They were well behaved. Okay, so there's that. What do we have here? Okay, so a big piece of, we're talking about administrative and turf in here, but one of the larger accomplishments, it's one that's taken Jim and I basically most of our careers to get done here, is to try to close the gap between the design load of commercial buildings, which dominate the square footage occupancy in the education industry, and what the NEC requires. All of us have observed the underloading of transformers and the oversizing of design circuits. And in our industry, that's spending something around $60 billion a year on new electrical systems, taking a couple percent out of that's real bucks. So this is a 167-page report. I have a hard copy of the first 10 pages of it, but it's up there on our website for you. We will be preparing input based on this study. Where's our friend from Eaton? I want to give them credit.
Dan.
No, he just left.
I want to give them credit for they were one of the organizations that actually had funded this. So much of what I did over the past year had to do is herding cats. And these universities, my boss and I, managed to get these organizations to kick in money to provide this study. And this is important enough for NFPA that they're setting up a special task force just to deal with the rationalization concepts that we have proposed, this committee has proposed for NFPA.
Is this the 160 volt amps or the sliding, or is this both?
Well, no, right now we have a default of 180 VA, and it's likely we can go down to 120 VA per outlet with impunity, but Mother Nature provides a challenge to that with problems with heat. So we're getting into pathology of that. Tammy Gannon did the report, a very good report, and what they want me to do is find more money because they know if we need another $500,000, we're filed.
Right.
Oh, that's what they want me to do. I said, I don't want any task group work. If you just let me loose, I'll try to hustle some money, and we'll get maybe a couple $100,000.
Well, I need to show you state collection program.
There's some people in the room that probably don't know what we're talking about. I think everybody knows that Mike and I did a paper and got some changes to the National Electric Code regarding lighting. The code was saying 3 watts per square foot when you design your building service and your substations and all your distribution. We got to change and
We got down to 1 now.
.9 actually, which is the ashtray number. And what we're trying to attack now is the 160 volt amp. You have to allow 160 volt amps. 180 per outlet, when you often know and experience has shown that we have 200 amp panels in our hospital, 42 circuits. You go take a reading on it at the high points of the day, you might get 30, 35, 30 amps.
Yeah.
So all this distribution is being wasted, not only from a cost perspective, space perspective, materials perspective. But anyway, this research study is to provide the tools we need and the data we need to convince the code to make some changes. That summarizes reasonably well.
You were part of the group. You want to describe what it does?
Yeah, I mean, part of what my group does, what I've been doing over the years, is doing what we call facility assessments of the Department of Defense. And we found that, these facilities, and they range from the size of the Pentagon to SATCOM facilities are very small. And in general, they are extremely loaded to even to 30 to 40% in terms of the overall power distribution all the way down. The NMCC, for example, the design criteria for NMC was 15 watts per square foot for that facility, and which is a tremendous amount of power, which obviously, like everybody knows, generates the size of the equipment to be huge. So when we start talking when Mike started talking to me about this concept, I said, I think this is a concept that should be investigated for the National Electrical Code, NFPA, to see if they can't, more realistically design something, because we're talking about copper, we're talking about size of equipment. We're talking about a footprint. For example, you build a 60 megawatt data center, and the footprint is unbelievable based on the standard that you have to follow through the NFPA, right, through National Electrical Code. So can we build it more efficiently and more economically? I think yes, if we can prove the fact that we're over-designing, we're overbuilding, we're just creating an infrastructure that we'll never, ever need. And also, here's another aspect of it. As everybody knows, you run a transformer at 30 to 40% of its capacity, and you're wasting energy. You're wasting more energy than it's not efficient to run it at that. UPSs should be run at the 60% level. Ladies and guys should tell you that, 60, 80%, as well as transformers.
Additional unnecessary incident energy in some cases.
Exactly. And in some cases, I found transformers running at 10% load. 10% load.
Okay.
Is this anticipation of growth? No.
So we've got to get money to collect the data.
Right.
One of the next
data collection effort.
What can we get for free? So that's kind of where we're at. So we'll talk about that one again. NFPA will be conducting a series of just on this project. And I want to also mention to you that public input for the National Electrical Code for the IEEE group is, I believe, due sometime mid-July. So I'll get that up on our EH website. But if we want to coordinate IEEE proposals with NFPA, Crystal Hunter's asking for them to be done soon. Okay, so I won't go into too much detail here, but we report there are a lot of code wins that we made. You're welcome to see. The larger ones is the bright line language for aluminum and the lighting supply circuits. I was able to get a few references to IEEE 3000 series standards. What's not on this list is that I went through whatever 3000 series standards were ready for referencing, and I got them in. I think I got 4 or 5 of them in, but the committees threw away most of them. But the point is, once they have been approved and minted, they can again. So that makes a market for the IAS product.
Can I interrupt?
Yeah, go ahead.
Giuseppe left, but Sergio, the CSA have the same kind of issues that we're talking about on the NDC with the 3 ones for lighting and things like that?
I'm not sure what they have. If you want, I can look it up.
Well, I'm just thinking is if we have successes with the National Electric Code, and there's similar problems that exist with the Canadian Electric Code.
I can guarantee you that if the CSA says no, they don't care what UL says or what NEC says.
The CSA actually has, your code is actually a much more enlightened way of doing it. I circulated among this group Art Tesserev's presentation on the performance-oriented language for branch circuit design that just showed up in the CSA. So we can talk about that too. I'm submitting that to the NFPA. But again, those group, that's fire guys, and they want prescriptive stuff to enforce. We'll probably have to march a little along, a little bit faster here. So if you don't mind, I wanted, since we're mentioning forensics, I felt that it's necessary. You can see that on the blog post that we keep, that I'm identifying where there are large campus outages. Campus outages usually run on the order of $100,000 to $1 million a minute when they're forced. And so that's some serious bucks. And so that's why I'm talking a lot to, you actually did a presentation for me, but talking, I'm trying to align a little bit more on thinking and to follow the lead of Giuseppe. So you'll notice on our website, if I can get back to it, sorry about that, guys, that we will, you'll see whenever there's large outages and the information is in the public domain, I do it. There's about 3 or 4 outages in the a week in the 1,500 odd colleges and universities that are tied. It's a lot, and there's a lot of money wasting. Yeah. So if you want an opportunity to do forensic projects and such and so forth, it's all there. So that would be beginnings of a database.
But that oversizing here is not that is somehow that those are as per the standard already there. Like the way that those equipments are selected.
No, they follow
Like,
They follow the NEC code. Only for special circumstances do they override that. The government's the United States government's allowed to override the NEC code anyways, but they don't for obvious reasons, for liability, legal reasons, you know. Right. But they will overbuild something. For example, that example I gave for the MCC was 15 watts per square foot. They'll overbuild something because the mindset is if I make it bigger and heavier and more powerful, then it's not going to fail. It's exactly the opposite. Yeah.
Okay, so marching along then, here's where whenever I see something that's in the public domain, I try not to get into if it's a proprietary information. But if this is the local town newspaper that's reporting the campus went out of power, that's what I'm doing. So I'm trying to be careful of the intellectual property issue. I hope I'm doing a decent job. Hi, yes, Sergio?
Yeah, it sounds like a really good report. Can you turn it into a paper?
A report? Well, we already did 2 papers. Actually, I did 3 papers on it.
On that?
Not on this report, on the concept of bringing, go look in the IAS journals. I did that before this committee was started. No, actually, I did it concurrently with it. I have done 3 papers on this, IEEE papers on this topic. And Jim is co-author on one of them, and one of them was published 2 years ago. Not on this report.
Okay. Can that report be turned into a paper?
It's just time.
I understand.
Okay.
And we have 6 months,
Okay.
a year.
Yeah, when is the
IECPS?
Yeah, when is the deadline for that? Is it November?
November, December?
Okay, we'll get that on there. Actually, I wanted to put it on.
28, wasn't it, for the
IAS, yeah, but that's over. You missed that.
Okay, yeah, we missed that. Was in April.
IECPS
Okay.
next year.
So the deadline, is the deadline,
No, it won't be. When?
it's usually November.
Yeah.
It's usually
November, the first or second week of December.
Yeah, okay, we're going to say it's November, December, something like that. And I'll get that in November, December, and all this stuff will be up there. And I'll actually tweet it. I'll tweet it, so maybe I'll light a flyer under somebody else who wants his boss to send him one of these conferences, and we'll have nice content for him. Okay, I guess questions? I think we already brought this issue. Sergio says just get your stuff published and get your PAR going, and I'll say that's fine. But we asked in the original, at the moment of birth, if IEEE doesn't do this, we can have other organizations do this work. So I would like to see IEEE do this work and gain from it. Okay, so here's the paper. You've already seen that circulated. If you haven't seen it circulated, so it's already up there. We just have to clean it up and it'll go in the magazine.
This is the paper that was approved for magazine
Right.
that you have not submitted yet.
No, it was submitted, it was approved for the magazine.
You haven't uploaded it.
I have not uploaded it. I was busy organizing last year's conference. Okay, let's see, contribution. So, let's see, what was this one here? Committee paper? Oh, yeah, okay, so I'm just, please feel welcome to join the LinkedIn groups. And I think there's this subcommittee, so you've already seen those questions. So, I think at this point, that's the new business. Excuse me, that's the old business, and I just wanted to open it up. Maybe, Jim, you want to conduct this part of the meeting? Or I can finish up here. Well, I thought we would, the proposed power is campus power distribution, it would be a 3000 series campus power system. It would set the standard of care, follow very much the same guidelines. We actually have a template for it. Somebody gave me the, but again, it's just a matter of time. What can you do first? Given that the customer himself.
Sergio,
Yes.
if we have this new, want to try and get this new power approved, does this go to the TBCC or?
It has to go
Power
to
Engineering
TBCC. It
Society?
has nothing to do with power system engineering. TBCC looks after all the powers.
So we bring it up with power system engineering just to discuss it.
You can, but it's pointless because we have no say over what powers get approved. The LEAP looks after powers. And that's the way the new format is. TBC looks after all the powers. Power system engineering, as much as you don't like it, only is concerned with generating income for IEEE through papers.
I didn't say I didn't like it.
Whether,
I said I only have 8,760 hours a year.
okay, how long does it take to upload a paper?
All right.
Sorry, thank you.
What was the new business?
I was going to leave it open for others, you know, at the deadline. I wanted to bring up this business of buying and selling of a power system, an entire 200 megawatt power system, and letting the bidders, this is nuts. I can't even get my heads wrapped around this, knowing what I've known after having built a power system such as U of M. Who was in this meeting? I bet you there weren't many electrical engineers, but when you go out snipping like 200 megawatts out of the center of campus and then spinning it off to private enterprise for $250 million, and electrical engineers aren't involved, I have concerns about the life cycle of that. And I won't have time in my career to handle this, but if this is going to happen, I like the next generation of engineers.
I
To at least be,
can tell you what's happening to government locations when they actually privatize.
please enlighten us.
The infrastructure is getting older and older and older. Now all I do is put together with bubble gum and shoestrings.
Okay, well, that's what they bought, then that's
You know
what
what's
they get.
that? You know what that's generating? That's generating the individual sites to buy more generators, to look at microgrids, to look at all that stuff instead of
Mhm.
improving and maintaining their
Yeah.
facility infrastructure. That's what it's doing.
You did mention the trigger word microgrid. I'm very respectful of the research necessary. A lot of federal dollars are going into researchers
Yes, they are.
to do microgrids.
Yes, they are.
As I have learned from YGen, is that smart grids and microgrids have always been smart. Ever since the first power system, that Edison, they were, after he finished turning on the public lighting system, they were trying to make it smarter. So what you call it, a smart grid or microgrid runs along a continuum, but the terminology sort of causes facility leaders and AVPs of business operations, they sort of light up so that they can go and chum around with their friends at their conferences and tell them how enlightened their microgrid is.
Well, I think.
When actually we probably already have it to some degree with some things, some basic bread and butter issues.
I think there's something missing here, and what's missing out of this whole situation is cybersecurity. Industrial control system and cybersecurity, especially microgrids, are being attacked, and nobody's paying attention to this. Nobody's paying attention.
There's campus power system vulnerability.
Nobody
Campus
mentioned
microgrid
cybersecurity. It's a huge topic that there's no standardization, there's no standard approach to it, there's no conceptual idea of how to prevent it in terms of defense or offense. I think it's a serious situation.
Okay.
And Homeland Security doesn't know how to approach this either.
Okay. Well, it sounds, I feel a paper forming in our heads. Do you feel it happening too? Okay.
No, it's what we're just talking about. I was listening instead of taking notes, but I mean.
Cybersecurity, industrial control systems.
Before that though, I mean, the thing is that nobody understands or wants to put money into doing the proper maintenance of a power system.
That's correct.
I remember one case when I was still working with a consultant, we were at some industrial plant, and I don't remember the exact issue, but something needed to be upgraded. The utility had upgraded their power system. The breakers were over, they're interrupting ratings. And the guy says, it's working fine.
Don't touch it, it's working fine.
It was over, I don't know, this is 40 years ago.
Yeah, what has happened to your
It hasn't
available?
changed much. It hasn't changed much.
And I guarantee you, the people making those decisions might bring an electrical engineer into the discussion with a point of view like yours, but the likelihood is they won't. That's that crowd.
Well,
I know that.
we were there at this industrial facility, not at the invitation of the plant person, but of the corporate person. Who
The
understood
plant
the
guy
issue.
doesn't want you to expose any issues, that's why.
So I hope for people in the audience, you see where we're going, what's possible. As always, just like for people like Jim and others who come to our meetings, I'd like to create some kind of a career track and kind of at the very least put together an hour curriculum. And I'm hoping that Neil and Bob could do something and adapt, do something for campus hospitals, which you did a month or two ago.
Sure, you've got a one line of something we can analyze and.
Well, speaking in one line.
I think I can steal one of those.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay,
I
good.
mean,
So that'll be the University of Michigan. We'll have to tiptoe around that because
well,
of
it
the way
can be
things are.
anonymous, and, you know, it's just a sample power system you want to analyze.
I'm sorry. Yeah, correct. We were talking forensics before, and I don't know how many approvals I'll have to get to release this document, but I think I can do it. But, I mean, we can do that, you're not.
Anonymized, yes.
We're sensitive enough, largely these are main-time aids, okay?
Mm-hmm.
But you and I, all of us know here how subtle just that concept is. And so I think if I've listened to all of it, they all come with very interesting
So
points of view.
if you would, I mean, to propose some generic power system design in one line, sequence of operations document, any other thing would help an analyst figure out, you know, a model to help you assess risk and
Okay.
proceed from there.
So, but for the first hour, the CE, your conference was your webinar was a CE, right?
I believe there
Yeah.
were CPU credits available.
So I'd like to be able to offer that to this group as soon as possible.
I encourage anyone who wants to do a webinar to approach IEEE about it. I think you'll find them very receptive because they would like to fill up that pipeline. It's an excellent, I think it's consistent with the subcommittee responsibilities of doing publications. I know papers are specific word used, but I think social media, webinars, tutorials also fit under that umbrella. Try to have a generous interpretation of these things.
Joe?
Yeah, for what it's worth, Neil's webinar, I attended, I got one PDH point.
Okay, all right. Well, that's what I'd like to do next. Jim, you can hear us here. I wanted to do enough of these to do kind of a proof of concept. So you were one of several that gave us a proof of concept. So it's easier to go to IEEE to get on their platform, which would be a far more polished platform.
Excellent support from the corporate people who maintain the infrastructure there. It came out over WebEx. It was, did we spend 10 hours preparing?
No,
So
no.
if it's a subject that you're familiar with and have under your belt, so to speak, there's not a lot of prep that needs, and I must say, Bob Scherger supplied us the PowerPoint to let us snip and cut and tuck, and it was, he did all the heavy lifting, we just were the pretty faces on
And
the webinar.
you're a good-looking guy.
Maybe one preface, I don't know what.
Yeah, well, so conceptually then, it's conceptually clear that we would do something about campus power system reliability generally. Maybe, do we focus on hospitals? Or should we just deal with campus?
I don't
I
want
think-
to belittle it, but it's all the same to me, you know, I analyze power systems.
Yeah, but hospitals
for risk.
have a different criteria in terms of, you know, what they follow for safety and
A
everything.
different top of it.
Yeah, I think if we focus on campuses, I think that would be good.
It's a little bit more general at the moment.
Well, it's more applicable to the NEC standards, right?
Yeah, well, I guess I do have an agenda. I'm going to be on Article 517
Mhm.
on the NEC. And I'm on SCC 18, by the way. And
So
that-
can we
that could be
influence
helpful.
708 to move that forward too?
I did something on that. That is kind of stalled. I think other things like storage took the, there's only so much stuff NFPA can do. And I think that one met a need, but I think that they're more interested in dealing with alternative energy and storage. It's a big deal for them right now, and cybersecurity. So it's not that it's not important, it's just that, just like Jim and I, we only have so much time
Yeah.
to do stuff here.
Yeah.
Because we are volunteers, right?
So-
Okay,
You could upload that.
what's that?
Sorry, it's Sergio invitation.
Yeah, I see, okay. So just some cool words for the conference in Milano. I'd like to thank Giuseppe. I know he was leaning into this quite a bit, so I would encourage anybody to book a ticket to Milano and to attend that conference. It's in a month. You should get some good seats. It's a Bergamo, and I think there's a nonstop from Chicago to Milano, and it's about $1,100 until about May 30th. And then finally, of course, we meet again in October here. And papers have already been due on that one, but I believe that this is the annual meeting. So I think that's the formal part of the agenda, and we have 6 more minutes for anything else, anyone else in the audience wants to talk about.
Well, I just want to encourage you to, or I encourage the audience to come up with ideas for tutorials that could be held at ICPS next year. I think that'd be a really good way for this committee to go forward. You know, not so much writing papers, but having tutorials on the topic. It's kind of a double-edged sword to open up a tutorial via webinar, because we are trying to drive attendance here. And if you open it up via the web, people won't attend. So consider that also.
Yeah, we're, I think all the trade, I go to meetings for all of the standards developers, and they're all struggling with how information seems to be free now, and how can you stay in business with all the information being free. The music industry went through it, the standards industry is going through it. I don't think it's going to go away. I think there's some happy medium there. So we're mindful of that. We just have to have really cool content so that people just want to press our flash. I think if we could show how dynamic and cool we are,
We got to get our
people to come
content.
just to meet us.
We got to get our content specified with designers, specified with construction people, so that they have to follow our contact. They have to go to our content in order for them to achieve their, whatever they're doing. They're building their building, they're building a campus, they're building the healthcare. We've got to get the situation where they're calling out IEEE standard, blah, blah, blah. This is what you got to follow. This is what you got to do. That's when our publication is going to take off.
Yeah. Well, I'll say there's an intermediate step in which if you can get the documents incorporated by reference, IEEE, and which adopts 90.1.
Yeah.
If you can come through the back door like that, then that's the way to do it. I think I did a pretty strong voice in trying to get our stuff at least referenced.
Yeah.
So
I don't think it's an exclusive war. You should be pressing all of these buttons and hope that one of them does it. It's a shotgun approach.
Yeah.
the other thing, you mentioned the revenue requirement, though. Are there some revenue, is it possible to subscribe to webinars or classes? I'm actually on a committee that I can't mention right now. It's actually looking at a subscription model for bringing revenue. Is that possible?
IEEE offers webinars that are charged, or parts of, different societies do that. They also have a great deal of stuff that's freely available to the membership. A huge collection of books, technical texts that are PDFs that if you're a member, you can get. Then there's all the Wiley/IEEE press available too.
Okay.
And if you're interested in being a published author and generating some income that way, then IEEE will be happy to publish whatever you've got as long as it passes the editorial test.
Finally, how do we make a cleaner career path for some of the prospective members of this, or visitors or participants in this committee? I'm in a number of the trade associations, and those trade associations, their business model hangs heavily upon helping their participants get their next raise, or get their next promotion, their next title, training them for the next.
Like the energy AEE. And when I got my CEM, Certified Energy Manager, through that. That's the kind of thing you're looking for?
I think so, something like that. Of course, the content's got to be there, but I like my guy who's showing up. He's obviously, he's improved his skills. Maybe we're even talking management skills, because I find that engineers get to a certain level, especially in education, they're stuck there. And there's more than a lot of trade associations that want to make you the next level manager. So I'll just put that out there. Jim, from California, is there anything you'd like to add to the meeting before we close out?
No, Mike, I'm good. I enjoyed listening in on this. Sorry I couldn't make it to Canada, but I can only make so many travels lately.
So there you have it. Better than nothing. Okay, well, thank you very much, colleagues. I guess that's the end of the meeting. I hope to see you in October.
Cincinnati.
And I'll know how to spell it by that time.
Portopolis is one of the many names.